Hello and welcome to Thrive Talk. I'm Gina Fontaine, and tonight we are assessing whether your body is ready to run. Now, I know most of you watching are saying, Gina, I can run, or I only run if somebody's chasing me, or I can't stand running, or maybe I'm planning on running a 5K or a marathon, or it's a great, easy type of exercise. What are you talking about? Like, I can just put my shoes on and go running right now. Well, here's the thing. I think it's important that we don't get injured, right? And so there are ways that you can tell if your body has the right amount of support to support running. And running really is it's a more advanced activity. Even though most everybody can run after their kids and you can do it in short bursts, we're going to go over 4 tests that actually become 4 exercises that you can do to prepare your body to run with efficiency. So welcome. I'm so glad that you're here either live, and you can actually put a comment in. I'm streaming through StreamYard, so you actually have to go through StreamYard if you want me to see who you are, but you can put your name in. If you're watching the replay, please let me know. So I'm going to stand up because these tests all require me to be standing. And why is this important? Well, running is an activity where you don't really spend any time on both feet. So you spend most of your time in this type of position. So if you don't have the right amount of stability in your knee, watch what happens. It looks something like this, where your knee is caving and collapsing. And take it from me, I'm recovering. Well, I think I'm fully recovered now, but I had anterior cruciate ligament surgery 8 months ago. And it's been a process of rebuilding the support and structure underneath me. And now I can run about 2 miles. So let's start. And I want this to be interactive. So you can do this along with me. And we're going to begin with a single leg calf raise. Now, ideally, these tests are done freestanding without holding on to anything, but you might need to hold on to something when we do these. So make sure you can see my whole body. All right, so we begin with one foot lifted from the floor. Now, see how you do lifting and lowering. Can you do it without holding on to anything? Okay, that's test number 1. So no shame in needing to hold on to something if you need to. Now, the next thing, I'm going to get up a little bit closer so you can see my foot. The next thing to look for is, what is your foot doing? Okay, did you see what my foot just did? Kind of veered out to the side, or you might do something like this. See how my knee is all wobbly and trying to track. So your ideal positioning is actually, can she do it? Lift straight up, straight down. Now, I've worked on this a lot because I've been in knee rehab for about 8 months. All right, so if you're not sure what you're doing, there's a simple trick, and that is to film yourself. Okay, so when you're finished here, I need to adjust my camera. Get out your phone and prop it up and see how you look. Likely, I'm going to go to my left foot. You're going to see a difference between the right and the left. Now, what's the ideal number of repetitions? Freestanding without holding on to anything, 20. Can you do 20 repetitions? And I know that seems like a lot, and it is, because if you're going to go out running, you need to build up endurance, right? Okay, so that's number 1, is the single leg calf raise. Number 2 is the standing hip abduction. For those of you that don't have a physical therapy background, abduction means moving away from. So lifting at an angle out to the side. So again, if you need to hold on to something, hold on to something. Ideally, you're doing this freestanding as part of the test for Are You Ready to Run? So you're lifting, Now, here's where the details come in. Put your hands on your hips and do your leg raise. Do you feel your hip hiking up, or do you feel your rib cage dipping down? So ideally, this is a leg raise with hip stable, rib stable, lift and lower. And feeling it out here in that outer portion of your hip. And then again, you would want to test that on both sides, raising and lowering. Checking for hip hiking, checking for leaning, checking for instability in that opposite leg. Like when you're raising the leg, is that opposite knee all over the place? And again, your magic number is 20. Can you do 20 freestanding leg raises without hip hiking, without rib slouching or rib flaring? Okay, so that's number 2, hip abduction. Number 3 is single leg squat. All right, so with this, again, you're going to pick up one foot, raising the toes off the ground and sinking the hips back like you're sitting down into a chair and then standing back up again. So it's a squat down and a stand up. Now, I'm going to come up closer to the camera. These are the type of distortions that you might see. See how my knee is caving in and kind of like surfing? Okay. If that's happening, put your opposite toe on the floor and provide a stable base until your body develops enough support to do that freestanding. Here's the other thing that can happen. I'm really over exaggerating these, but you'll see like leaning, hip thrusting back. So if that's happening and there's twisting happening in your torso, go ahead and put your toe on the floor and provide good support. Okay. And then switch over. And so again, you'll want to have either put your phone up on a stand or a tripod or have somebody film you after you watch this, or get in front of a mirror and watch with fine detail. Okay. Watch for these kind of things: hips turning, torso twisting, knee collapsing to the inside or the outside. Your ideal single-legged squat has very little knee wobbling. And also you're not like pitching your leg out into the front or to the back to make that happen. So your raised foot is right next to your base ankle, and you're lowering and you're lifting. So that's number 3. So far, to recap, get back up here because I'm going to need to pull out some equipment for the next one. So far you have single leg squat, you have single leg calf raise, and single leg hip abduction. Now I pulled out my step bench. Remember step aerobics? Woohoo! Yes, I taught plenty of that in my day. But you're going to need a raised surface. So it could be a step in your home. It might be a yoga block, but make sure it's big enough that your whole foot can fit on it. And we're going to practice the hip hike. So I'm going to bring my shirt up just so you can see a little bit better. Now, in the hip hike, this is probably the most tricky one to teach. So what you're going to do is let your foot drop, and you're going to open up the space between your hip and your rib cage, and then you're going to hike up and lower down. Hike up and lower down. Now, if you take your hand, put it on your back, ideally, there's not much muscle activity happening there. So what you're doing is isolating these muscles here, your obliques. Now, the other thing that's happening, I'm going to face you, is that when you're lowering and lifting, this hip, the standing hip, is not slouching to the side. So you're staying upright. Let's take it from the other side. I'm going to show you a front view too. So on the other side, you are lowering the thigh bone and then pulling the thigh bone back up into the hip socket. It's like you're dropping the thigh bone down and then pulling it up. Dropping the thigh bone down and pulling it up. And again, checking your low back. Are those muscles hyperactive? You want to make sure they're not. I'm going to turn the step around just so I can show you some other details with this. Okay. So what I was talking about with your opposite hip. So I'm standing on my right leg. I've got the left foot and I'm dropping it. So if this kind of thing is happening, your hip is kind of dropping out to the side and your hip hike looks like this. Okay, that's more like a Marilyn Monroe walk, right? So here's your ideal hip hike. See how this side is super quiet, right side is super quiet, and you're hiking up. I think of it like if I had a hook on my hip and there was a rope attached to it, and I'm pulling on the rope, and the rope is hiking my hip up, and then it drops down. You might need to hold on to something. You might need to hold on to a handrail for a while until you get enough support to do that. And like I said, that is by far one of the most challenging of those 4 tests. So you've got your single leg calf raise. Make sure your foot isn't flaring out to the side or your knee isn't caving in. Your single leg hip abduction out to the side without hiking your hip, without dropping your rib cage. You've got your single leg squat without knee collapsing, without torso twisting, and your hip hike, which is the last one that we did, probably the most complicated of the 4. That's a lot, right? So it might make you rethink, like, maybe I need to master these before I go out and run and subject myself to potential hip, knee, ankle, different injuries that can come about when the body doesn't have the right kind of support. Running is a great activity. I always encourage run on softer surfaces when you can, when that's available. If you have any questions, and I certainly don't want you to leave this little webinar saying, oh my gosh, I need to be fixed. There's something wrong with me. It's just accentuating what's already there. So maybe you identified a few weak links, and now you get to take these 4 tests and use them as exercises to help improve your performance. Now, that's probably oversimplifying things. There's a lot more going on, which this area, your core, has a huge effect on the rest of your kinetic chain. The whole body moves together. And so that's why I offer my 6-week group coaching, which is the Mama Core Restore. And really all movement starts from here. So if this isn't activating, then it's going to be harder to get the other muscles to balance. Like this is your foundation. So if you are interested in joining the 6-week coaching series, I will be starting a new group next week. I just pick the day and time once the group assembles, and then we pick a day and time that works best for all of us. So I will pop the information in the comments about how you can get signed up for that. And through Thursday, I'm offering $100 off for that. And truly, truly, look at this as an investment. There's so much difference between expense and investment. And investing in yourself in these type of things is a preventative measure so that later on in life, you're not having to spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on repairing things that could have been prevented, such as, physical therapy, chiropractic care, massages. So take good care of yourself and you set yourself up. It's like putting money in the bank so that your 70-year-old body will look back and thank you now when you're a 40-year-old. Trust me. It's really worth the investment. So have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you for joining me for Thrive Talk. I'm Gina Fontaine. And please put any questions that you have in the comments and have a wonderful evening.